I started believing maybe my life was not even worth living anymore. I started, having these pretty horrid conversations with myself about not enough, not lovable, couldn't do anything, done, just done. And that came, unfortunately, as a result of excessive alcohol use and the shame that comes with that and other either substance addictions or process addictions. And I found a way to put that aside without the current primary methodology of doing so.
Welcome to the What If You Could podcast. And my friend, who was kind enough to rush onto the screen for us, but she looks amazing. She's got her books here. I'm excited about our chat, is Roseanne Forte. Hello, Roseanne.
Hey, how are you doing, Gary?
Living the dream, sister. Living the dream. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Feel the
Well,
same
thank
way.
you for being here, guys. Roseanne Forte is a international best-selling author, addiction and behavioral habits specialist, and the creator of the Choose Freedom program. So we have tons to jump in here. I can't wait to. But because we're the What If You Could podcast, I always ask my guests the What If You Could question. So, Roseanne, what is your What If You Could?
Live in the what if I could. I'm in the midst of it, and I love, love, love the theme of your show. Thank you for bringing that to people, because it's kind of my message too. I started with believing I couldn't do anything. I started believing maybe my life was not even worth living anymore. I started, having these pretty horrid conversations with myself about not enough, not lovable, couldn't do anything, done, just done. And that came, unfortunately, as a result of excessive alcohol use and the shame that comes with that and other either substance addictions or process addictions. And I found a way to put that aside without the current primary methodology of doing so. That methodology that exists predominantly today, what I couldn't resonate with. I was a successful leader, or I was an executive, I was performing well in the world. I was a leader in the church, and I looked at these options to help me, and I was like, labeling didn't resonate with that. As I know I'm on the other side of this, right? Nobody does before they get that. Like, what? You want me to call myself what? And then its focus was on a higher power. I'm a Christian. I already had my higher power. And then that term character defects makes my stomach turn. I mean, we all fall short of the glory of God, right? We're all imperfect. But, this kind of thought for me. Now, I want to be careful because so many people have healed through this and in a miraculous way and found God through it. So I'm not trying to dismantle anything that somebody is healed over. I want to be really careful about that. But I am explaining to you how I was on the other side of this, and I've read enough books to know I'm not the only one, because that's the thing. Like, oh no, I'm not going there. They all have the same questions as I did, right? And I ended up going outside of the church and learning more a neuroscience based approach of changing neurological pathways and changing ways of thinking. And I was so transformed inside 90 days. And what I loved about this approach was instead of putting the focus on me or a shortcoming, they said, "Why are you drinking attractively packaged poison?" Wow. Why am I? Why am I? Right. And this shift in mindset, a lot of the things that they were doing were really powerful for me. And at the end of the program, I was retired, and I ended up, asking to work for him because I was so transformed. My blood pressure, my weight, my confidence, my, um, just belief in myself, everything transformed, and I'm like, "This is kind of secret sauce, like, to work with you and find out more." And I did. I joined their team. I was an enrollment coach and a client journey coach, and I started talking to other people just like me. And I learned the science. And I was like, oh my goodness, this science is. I was just floored because what they were teaching was everything I had learned in the Bible as a Christian for 3 decades. My thing is they were teaching the kingdom without the king. And so there were a lot of people coming into the program, so high performing people, also people that didn't resonate with the 12-step stuff. They were also believers. Like, I'm so ashamed of what I'm doing. And, I started saying, well, you're going to hear, if you're a Christian, you're going to hear God's word in here. And I started just matching everything up for them. Uh, and just a scratched piece of paper, right? It was just a notebook, my handwriting. I'd write the verse and a prayer, and I'd snapshot it and send it to all the people in the program that told me that they were Christian, and they're like, "Oh, wow, Roseanne, keep doing this. I love it. This is so helpful." So that's really, how I got into doing what I'm doing and wrote my first devotional. It's the integration of neuroscience and biblical wisdom. Yeah.
Well, you opened up a whole bunch of stuff there.
Ah,
Um,
wait, and I let me just start with every morning I wake up and I go, "What's next, God?" Like it's just I don't even feel like the same human being anymore, and I want people to have that same hope, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting about my wife's 22 years in recovery. My second wife, I've remarried, is 22 years in recovery from. She went through AA. Um, and what they talk about is people have to find their higher power.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be because a lot of people initially do get turned off by the God talk or the
Mhm.
Jesus talk and the religious talk like that, and because of that, it pushes some people away because they're so damaged, they're so hurt that it just doesn't resonate with them, or they had bad experiences with organized religion. So they say find a higher power. It could be whatever, but it's interesting that you have merged faith based with
Right.
neuroscience because a lot of people believe wholeheartedly that the two just don't mix.
That is absolutely true, and they do. That's all I can tell you is they do. It's and this and you're right. I am kind of unapologetically one way just because that's how I see the world, and the addiction is a tough thing if you don't have a moral compass, right? If you don't go, if I do, when I make this choice, this happens. If I make that choice, this happens. But who are you making the choice for? Why are you making the choice? Where's your North Star? And but there are, and let me go through a few of the things that I realized in the science is gratitude, right? The program that I had to, or not had to, I went through was big on gratitude. Like, write down 20 things every day that you're grateful for. Well, that's a lot of things, and it's hard when you're in a state. But what it does, and I don't think I have to tell too many people that there's a lot of science behind behind gratitude. There is, but there's also a lot of scripture that says to be grateful in all things because all good things come from God. And there is a lot of science around awareness of awareness, especially as it creates and meditation, meditating. And again, God asks us to meditate on his word. There is in addiction and in a lot of counseling um, world, you have to solve for something called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is the belief of two competing thoughts about the exact same thing, right? I love it, I want it, I need it, I have to have it, or it's killing me, I've got to stop, this is ruining my life, which is true, right? It's you're talking about the exact same thing. And so the repetition, that's why I do the devotional, because the science is that we can test we can change neural pathways. We can change the way we think. We don't have to be stuck with this is going to be a problem for me for the rest of my life. I the the narrative I have is I have choices every day. And my choice today is not about alcohol or no alcohol. It might be more chocolate cake or no chocolate cake, right? It might be, checking my cell phone versus making a phone call to my friend. There's choices every day and there's consequences of our choice. And I think that's that cognitive dissonance, that empowering that I get to choose every day the direction of my life is a is a shift in thinking from victimhood to empowerment. Um, there's also a scripture I guess I wanted to bring up that this was kind of the neuroscience, and neuroscience is changing the way your brain fires and wires and triggers, right? And shifting mindset. And there's a scripture in Romans 12:2, and it says, "Do not conform to the patterns of this world." So if you think about it around the alcohol thing, right? The pattern of this world is do it, it'll increase your love life, it'll increase your fun, it'll help you get the girl, it'll relax you, it's the miracle drug. And initially, it probably does a little bit, a few of those things it promises. That's why we continue to use it. But the scriptures do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. 1,000 years ago, we were told that our mind can be renewed. And 50 years ago, science said, oh, you can shift neural pathways, can shift your way of thinking. And then what people miss in this scripture, for anybody who's a believer, they've probably heard, renew your mind. But they don't do the second part of the verse. The second part of the verse says, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And it's this testing. That's how you renew your mind. Test, is it good? Is it bad? Is it better? We're testing through gratitude. Like, hey, oh my gosh, I had a better conversation. I slept all night. I'm losing weight. I have time to start exercising, right? And when you start documenting all the good things that happen, the awareness, the mindfulness, the gratitude, the repetition, um, you're shifting your way of thinking. And it's so fun to watch people transform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm what they call a normie. In AA, they would call me a normie because I could drink all I want, and I don't, have the challenge of the addiction part of it, which my wife did. Um, but I stopped drinking when we met, just because she's not drinking. then I guess I'm not going to drink. And I could have turned pro. I was really good at it. But I just figured I'll just stop too. And I've never really looked back, but I know a lot of people really struggle with it. One of the things, a number of the things that you touched on was, the shame and the guilt
Mhm.
that people discover. And I think a lot of times they have the challenge of removing that guilt and that shame because they're someone else's expectation is what they're feeling. Like, I'm ashamed because of what people might think of me or what I've done and this and that. But you've taken this to a different level where someone actually has someone to lean on when you
Mhm.
go into the faith-based aspect of the healing. Yes, we
Right.
could rewire our brain with the neuroscience and stuff like that, which is super powerful. I believed in that for many, many years. But a lot of times when we're in pain, we need that person, that belief, that faith, something we can hold on to. And I think that's where the faith base can be so powerful.
Yeah, there's no question that a faith-based uh methodology is very effective in healing from this. AA and all the 12-step methodologies have proved this. And what I found, and I want to you know, I think when people are hurting, they don't want to be forced into the higher power thing, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not crying out to God. And that's where I think this approach happens. It's very gentle, it's very loving, it's very choice based, it's very scriptural based. So scriptural say, hey, look what God said here. Oh, I ignored that. Dang, did I pay a consequence? Look what's happening here. And it's 84 days of saying, look what God said. Look how I ignored it. Look at the consequence. And eventually you go like, maybe God's right. Like, you know, um, and so it's this gentle leading and an empowerment of choice. Because I'm not a big believer in forcing, God gives us a choice. Believe in him or don't. Follow me or don't. Choose whatever you want. And there's consequences. I'm just trying. I have a podcast too called Say Goodbye and Imagine. I just shifted over to biblical
What's the name?
Say Goodbye and Imagine. Kind of like yours, right?
No, I
Okay.
like that though. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times it's like you were talking about that brutal self-talk that we do to ourselves, how we beat ourselves up and we shame ourselves, and the self-talk can be so wicked. And I'm a big journaler, and when I lost my first wife to cancer and went down that dark rabbit hole of grief and suffering for the last 11 years. um, when I met my new wife and we got together, um, it brought up a lot of other different kind of weird emotions in me. And I found my journaling become very destructive, very dark, very self-loathing. And I couldn't figure out why. I talked to a friend, a good friend of mine. She's a psychic and a coach, and she does all sorts of crazy, amazing stuff. And she said, "Well, what I want you to do is I want you to take those journals. I want you to light a big fire in the backyard in your backyard fire pit and start paring out the pages and saying a blessing and tossing these suckers right into the fire."
Right.
Because you don't, because I save my journals, everyone saves their journals, I'm laying all over the place. But that painful self-talk that we beat ourselves up with, many times for a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but for a lot of people, when you open up the Bible and you start reading some things and you realize this is bizarre that I can connect with something from thousands of years ago. What I just read was written thousands of years ago, and it
Mhm.
resonates with where I am in my life right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's I was telling friends of mine, we were talking about this just the other night, in a Bible study, and we were like, remember before we believed, you'd just look at it and you'd read and it wouldn't hit? And then if you give it a chance and you're open-minded and you go, "God, what do you want to say to me through this?" And it's like somebody pushed you against the wall, and there's something that happens that shifts from this church hurt that you talk about that is so heartbreaking to me. So many people, I want people to believe, I want people to come to Christ, but so many people have been, "Are you kidding me?" No, never. And it's because somebody who calls themselves a Christian has caused a lot of pain and suffering. But we have to remember that hurt people, and a lot of hurt people go to church, and a lot of people proclaim to be in the light that aren't. And so that's why I'm like, go to the source. Go to the source, which
Cut
is
out
the
the middleman. Cut out the
right. Cut
middleman
out the
and go right
middleman,
to the
go to the
source.
Bible, and go to the source and see what he says to you. Because when you're open minded, it's the shifting is crazy. And you talked about shame, and shame is from the world, right? There's some verses in Second Corinthians chapter 7, and it basically talks about godly guilt versus worldly guilt. Godly guilt is where you recognize that you've done something wrong and you repent and you're restored and renewed. And we can do that every day. That's what God gives us. Worldly guilt is not you've done something wrong, you are wrong. There's just you are wrong. You are unfixable. And that is of the world. That is absolutely of the world. And that's what I thought. I was judging myself on everybody else's standards. And I have learned, and this is firsthand through me, right? If you hate yourself, which I did, I think Mhm. substance use and addiction is a form of self-hatred, then you are going to be really judgmental towards others because you're judging yourself. That's all you know. And when I got rid of that substance and I understood that relationship between me and God and the real love, then I could see other people. It was okay that they had fallen short too. I fell short. You fall short. We all fell short. That's okay. And yeah, I that was a big shift for me. As a matter of fact, I remember going through coaching, going into tears, like literally in the middle of a coaching session because I thought I was just such a horrible, reactionary, judgmental person. And what I found is the substance was creating that in me, or not all the substance, but there was a lot of it. Um, that when I pulled it away, that the shame went away, and it's just a beautiful thing. I'm a different person, and I want others to know that that's possible as well.
I've talked to a lot of recovering addicts of all kinds. And, a lot of times, some drinkers are heavy drinkers and turn it off. But gosh, I've talked to some people who've just gone so deep down the heroin, the cocaine, the fentanyl, and what they do to themselves
Hmm.
to get those drugs, what they, how much they harm themselves to get something, and how much hatred they have for themselves for doing it,
Hmm.
and they can't seem to find anything to hold on to stop what they're doing, this cycle. Like I was talking to my wife about it this morning, is the quicksand you feel is you can't pull your way out of it. And I think in today's world, there's so many mental health issues, whether it's drug or alcohol related or not. There's this bizarre hatred. There's this bizarre anger, like we chatted about a little bit earlier. This anger towards religion, this hatred towards people who are religious for some bizarre reason. I don't know where that's coming from, but I mean, do you guys chat about that when you're going through your program?
Well, we chat about the reason we reach for alcohol. Um, the reason we reach for a substance. And we try and separate, you know, we try and form this relationship with God so that we can drown out the lies of this world. Because remember, I talked about that attractively packaged poison, about all the hate in the world. And that's what's causing the stress. I remember I had clients years ago that were doing great and quitting drinking, and they drank because of the Capitol riots. And I'm like, okay. And I understand why that happened because of the anxiety that it created in them, but that's of the world, right? This is, you know, I I don't even know how to explain that, but I try and have people just be singly focused on who they are, on what the gold standard is and what the goal is, and to drown out the noise because there's evil in the world. There always has been, and there always will be. And trying to get in the midst of that is trying to control the outcome of the world. And I don't know. Didn't like I can't control it, right? I work and I challenge people, and part of that our program is to find purpose, because you're taking something out that you think is so valuable, um, that you can't live with it out it. And so there's this big void in your life, but you have to put in what you were created for to find real joy. Is that art, or have you always wanted to go back to school, or is it just having connection with your kids, right? What are you putting back into that time? Because that's what's creating the real joy. And not being sucked out into the lies of this world and those people who choose to hate, right? They're literally choosing to hate, and I don't understand it. I feel great sadness, even if it's directed towards me. I'm like, why? You have a choice. You don't have to, pay attention to why what I say. Why is it bothering you so much? Yeah.
Well, I
Um,
think it comes back down to the self-hate. You know,
mm-hmm.
you look at someone and they're just angry. They're maybe they have doing things to their body. They're going through these crazy gyrations. They jump from one thing to another of anger, and then they look at someone who's not perfect, doesn't have it all together, but seems a little more
Right.
centered in peace, right? It's like a little more peaceful because they have a little more foundation, right? They're not jumping from every chaos to another. And they see that and it makes them mad. And
Yeah, it
so
does.
instead of maybe going, "Hey man, what's that secret sauce that you've got working? Because you seem kind of level. You seem like you feel some peace from you. What is it?" But instead, they kind of want to rally against it as if it's,
Well, and in
pouring
the
water on the evil witch from the Wizard of Oz.
well, and it's in the name of some type of righteousness, right? And that's why we want to fix our eyes on what we think is righteous and what we think is truth. and make sure it really is. That's the cognitive dissonance thing, right? What really is truth? I was talking to a friend, actually just yesterday, and um, she's been through a lot in her life, like a lot of trauma that nobody should have to withstand. And she, as a result of that, she's a fighter, and and she was running into some problems with her employer, and she's performing well and everything, and probably has been pushing a little bit too hard on the raises, and it's causing friction. And I was telling her, is just the same as any relationship, right? They want to know that you care about them because they care about you. It has to be a mutual thing. When you go at somebody and you go, "Me, me, me, my needs, me," it's like, I go, "Have you ever responded, ever in your life, positively to somebody that came at you that way?" So I'm not sure I understand how yelling at someone, how getting angry at I've never responded the way nobody's ever changed my mind that approached me that way. Why do people think that's effective? I don't understand.
Yeah. I think you said talked about earlier, you talked about the performing. How a lot of time we get stuck in performing, and I think about the mask. I think a lot of people, whether it's because of social media or this indoctrination and just all the madness going on. I mean, if you're just not grounded in something, if you just don't truly believe in something, I mean, and I don't mean the cause of the week, like who are we protesting for this week, right? The cause of the week. But I mean, unless you just have that real grounding of foundation, whether it's faith, whether it's your family, whether it's belief in yourself, then you are just performing. You've got this mask on. You're jumping from thing to thing. You're acting the way people think you're supposed to. You're trying to fit into your tribe. God forbid you don't, toe the line with the tribe or they'll kick you out, right? And so it's so exhausting.
Mhm.
It's so exhausting. I mean, the peacefulness of having some sort of grounding, and you found it in your faith. A lot of people
Yeah.
find it in their faith. It's it just makes things easier because life is hard, right? I mean, why do we want to make things constantly harder?
Yeah, and I think that is the best part about 12 step is the community and the family and the people that think the same way, that are going to support you and lift you up and don't and have taken themselves out of the world and the chaos that they created, and they slow the world down for you and create community, and finding a tribe that keeps you grounded in a direction. um yeah, and it's not easy, but it, just continue to believe it's possible as you work through it. There's um even when I try and help, even in all the systems, I think we all suffer. We all go through suffering. Nobody's exempt from suffering, not believers and not unbelievers. And a lot of times, what we're called to do is take that suffering and help somebody else through it, which is the premise of the 12 step, right? But I can help somebody um, quit drinking, but I might get stuck if they've been molested as a child, because I don't understand. I'm not connected to that trauma, but somebody else who has and has healed can help that person. Somebody who's lost a person suddenly can help another person. Somebody who has lost a child can help. That is we can be used in a good way, even through suffering. And that is how. Staying in victimhood is closing the doors and living in darkness, but healing from those things and putting out your hand to say, I understand how you feel, come with me, follow, what I'm doing, or just listening. And that's why those programs are important. That's why church is important. Just finding a tribe that um that walks you through really difficult things in life, and there's a lot of difficult things in life. Yeah.
There's so much to be said for the coaching, the mentoring, the mastermind groups, AA, they give you a sponsor. Bible studies, I have a lot of good friends who go to their Bible
Mm.
studies a couple times a week. There's some things to be said for having that connection, uh, that shared healing together. One of the things that you said was that you had experienced what structure, I'm sorry, experienced what scripture calls a renewing of the mind,
Mhm.
and it was supported by science.
Oh, no.
And I thought that was an interesting line because, again, like I said earlier, most people just don't think, you know, you can't be a scientist and be real faithful and religious, and you can't be faithful and religious and believe in science because they don't mix together. But you found that they're a perfect blending science, neuroscience, and faith.
It's absolutely incredible. I'm gonna give you another one. This is day 1 of the devotional, right? And you'll recognize this in a minute, but First Timothy 4:15. Practice these things, immerse yourself in them so that all may see your progress. If we want to shift and change in anything, get healthy, right? Run a marathon,
Hmm.
learn an instrument. What do we have to do? Practice. And it's the same thing with quitting a substance. We have to practice. It doesn't happen overnight. Our body has to get used to the shift and the change. And, you know, um, there's just so many things. Uh, again, if you are a faithful believer, um, then that there's an enemy. There, we all see evil, right? Yet the Bible says in John 10:10 is the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I come to give you abundant life. What does substance do? Steals, kills, and destroys. That's why, again, I like the attractively packaged poison because it's focused on the enemy and the lies, not on the shortcoming of the person. If you know somebody's out to get you, i.e., evil, I'm going to start paying attention. No, 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 you're not getting me. Right? And that's what I love about that approach is what is trying to steal, kill, and destroy all aspects of your life, your relationships, your health, your mental health, your productivity, your finances. And when we can go, whoa, it's that thing. It's not me, it's that thing. When we can get outside of ourselves and look, it's so healing.
And today, I don't even think we have to, you look at booze commercials and they're all laughing and playing the guitar and dancing on the beach and everybody's super happy. Booze is great. um, you know, things are being legalized all over the place. Drugs are being legalized all over the place. Um, but I think it's even deeper than that right now. I think our society, we're being attacked on so many levels. Social
Mhm.
media is attacking families. The media, if there's such a thing anymore, is attacking families. Um,
If there's such a thing anymore, I love that.
I don't think there is.
Truth,
Um,
say it.
other right, there's just not. Other parts of the world are going through some really, really challenging things, and it's coming here to America. I mean, we're being attacked on so many levels. The family is being annihilated. They've been going after the family since the '60s, and it's finally working. It's finally,
Right.
they're hitting their goal, right? The family's being destroyed. Women are being destroyed. We don't know what a woman is, or a birthing creature. Um, and now we're destroying the men. It's like, we'll just make men women. We're going after the kids. It's like there's so much bizarre uh, things that are attacking us now. It's hard to fight back really unless you have some sort of grounding.
I don't yeah, it is. It is, and I would say when I hear you list all those things, it just creates anxiousness just to think about it, right? Um, and I would tell you when you feel that anxiety, um, how are you responding to it? Are you doing it through anger or a substance or a behavior? There's we don't have enough healthy ways to deal with anxiety. Society is getting less and less community oriented and more self oriented inside our house. Like I'm doing this podcast from inside my house, right?
Me
To be,
too.
I have to be very intentional to get out and in relationships. And so, if I were gonna share anything with your audience, is just to understand and identify what is stealing your joy so that you can see something different that's possible, right? The reason people don't think there's anything possible is because we're being fed doomsday type of things. But what if there's an opportunity to shift that and to pay attention and maybe, find friends that are not you do, and just like the drinking thing, you have to take yourself out of communities and situations that cause an enormous amount of anxiety. Now, that's not always possible if you're living inside a household with it, but even
Yeah.
well, and that's the case, right? But still, finding communities that help you bring truth, love, compassion, empathy, processes, support, accountability. That's what we all need to kind of fight the battles of this world. Yeah.
Think that, you know, it started a lot of it. I mean, I think the deepest part started for you in COVID,
Hmm.
right? And I think for a lot of people, COVID was a major downfall for so many people. We got isolated. We found out we didn't like our spouse. We didn't like our kids. They didn't like us. Um, that was a real damaging time. And that's kind of when you discovered all this, right? Went down that rabbit
Yeah. Yeah. March of 2020 is when I quit drinking. And this is why awareness is so key. I had spent, the better part of 5 to 10 years going, this is a problem. How do I stop? And avoiding the known methodologies. And you're 100% right that people went one of two ways. They either shifted and went, this is bad. I need to, like, I shifted because I thought I was going to die because COVID suppressed immune system and lung function. Well, I also used to be an ex smoker. A very heavy cigarette smoker, so didn't have the healthiest lungs and heavy duty alcohol, which I definitely qualified for. Also suppressed lung function. So I thought I'm kind of a goner if I catch COVID, and that scared me. That
Yeah.
scared me enough to go that route. But yeah, because I went into that program and then I started talking to people, and so many people said it just shifted during COVID because they were inside, nobody was watching. They could be on a call, a work call on Zoom, and have a drink in their coffee cup, and nobody would know any different, right? Yeah,
My
it's
friend had
sad.
a coffee mug that said, This is wine, not coffee. It just said it right on the coffee mug. It's wine. I'm not gonna lie about it. Well, you've done so much, and, I'm so grateful you came here. You have the 3 books. You've got, uh, The Plans He Has for Me, and you have Prepare to Quit, and you co-authored a book, Transformed by His Promises, a
Right.
12-week devotional integrating biblical wisdom and neuroscience support. Um, Tell us about that real quick, the 12-week devotional.
Yeah, the 2 devotionals I have, one is for substances and then one is for behaviors, and they look very, very similar. The thing that's super exciting to me about the second book, Transformed by His Promises, well, one, it's a good follow-up to the first book because once we put alcohol to the side, we wanna go, "Well, what do I do next?" And usually some other habit pops up that we wanna stop, so we just continually challenge ourselves, but Transformed by His Promises is co-authored by the medical director of the American Association of Christian Counselors, which is the largest Christian counseling organization in the world. Um, I met him at a conference with 7 or 8 thousand people, and that, talk about God, like how'd that happen? um, and when he started understanding my work, he's like, Roseanne, this is, he recognized the science and the integration of faith and science. He goes, this is incredible. He offered to write the forward to my program, Choose Freedom. I didn't even know I was going to have a forward, but he offered. He is the one that encouraged me to venture out of alcohol and into all life interfering behaviors. He goes, because it's seamless, right? Right now, I am challenging myself to putting down my cell phone in the morning until I'm done certain things, not checking email, not responding to texts, just taking me, myself, and I, and self care in the morning. And it's the same process. It's the exact same process, rewiring our brain, rewiring the way we think, rewiring. But anyway, this particular book is my pride and joy because I ended up, collaborating with Dr. Benzio, and he got some of the biggest names in the world to endorse the book. There's 19 endorsements from
Wow.
scientists, from psychologists, from psychiatrists, from major pastoral, from 12-step deliver. It was like, wow, I guess we really did integrate biblical wisdom and science because, yeah. And so, yeah, and I do want to take a minute on the prepare to quit because that one is what we've been talking a lot about. And this thing is a lot of times when people say, I have a problem, it's like, you need to go here, you need to stop. And if you've been in the middle of this, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. There's an awareness, there's a repeat, try. There's a process, and it's actually there's a name for the process. It's called the trans theoretical model of change. And so I know. I didn't even know this until after I wrote the book, but my heart was breaking, as I'm sure many of people that your wife sees in her journey. My heart was breaking between seeing people that were ready to quit and people that wanted desperately to quit but didn't know how. How do I match that up? And that was prepare to quit. And so that's an invitation you don't have to stop. I just wanna let you know all the pieces that need to be in place for you to say, "I'm ready." And there's no particular it recommends a 12-step, it recommends counseling, coaching, whatever process is good for you, follow it. But I just wanted people to have tools that would take the shame out, that would give them an awareness of what this thing was stealing from their lives and to get ready. And so that's that particular book, and I'm just super proud of it because it's super small. It's just like tiny little book. It's less than $10 on Amazon because people want to quit. I want the answer quick. I want it fast.
Yeah.
That's
No.
what I did. I wrote a quick book.
Quick and dirty.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, I mean, I happen to like books, if you can't tell, and I read a lot of books. And I've always found that sometimes people think they have to have a bigger book because otherwise, if it's a little book, it maybe might not be taken seriously. So they just add a lot of crap and a lot of fluff when they could have just covered it in that much book instead of that much book. I've read a lot of those. I'm like, dude, you had me in the first three chapters. Now it's just like regurgitation. So, no, it's a perfect size book, and there's definitely a need for that book. So, real quick before I let you go, I lied. I'm not a perfect man. I lied earlier. I said I just had one question. I'm a liar. I actually have two questions. So my first question was, what if you could question? I give you that question, but I don't give you the second question. So my last question before we sign off here, little Roseanne, is, excuse me, if there's something that you'd like to leave us with, if there's a thought, if there's a saying, if there's just something that means something to Roseanne that you'd like to leave us with before we go, what would that last thought be?
Yeah, I'd say it's not a willpower problem. It's a wiring problem.
Hmm.
But the wiring can be changed because it was created to be changed and created to be renewed. And so I want people to have hope and understand that that change is possible regardless of where you are, what damage has been done, how old you are. I didn't quit drinking till I was 60. So, yeah, I'm not going to listen to the it's too late for me. A lot of people in their 30s and 40s think it's too late. There's suicide is rampant, and if this helps one person understand that change is possible, then my heart is filled. Yeah.
I love that. All right, everybody, you were blessed with a little time with Roseanne Forte, an international best-selling author, addiction and behavioral specialist, creator of the Choose Freedom program that we didn't even get a chance to get into. But where can we find more Roseanne Forte? Where can we go look into your programs, find your books? What's your website? Where are you? Where can we get more of you?
Yeah, there's a lot of free resources at www.choosefreedom.today, not .com, www.choosefreedom.today.
www.choosefreedom.today. Let's choose freedom today. Well, you've been wonderful. There's so much more we could have got into, but respectful of everybody's time. So we'll just do this again. But in the
Yeah,
meantime,
we can do a part 2. It wouldn't
there
be
you
the
go.
first time.
So everybody look for Roseanne Forte. And what's your podcast again so people can find
It's
your
called
podcast too?
Say Goodbye and Imagine.
Say goodbye and imagine. I love that. So we're going to say goodbye now. And we're going to imagine all the awesomeness that we could get when we follow Roseanne Forte. So
Yeah.
thank you, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
All right, guys. See you next time. Thank you. See ya.